Episode 162 of the Actors Room highlights the Netflix documentary called The Crash. My little podcast usually talks about actors, actresses, and film, but every now and then I love doing a documentary just because I love documentaries. They're popular. People want to know about these circumstances, these situations, murders, mysteries. Me too. And for those of you who are listening who don't usually listen to my show, welcome. You're going to get a different perspective. I want to warn you, I may swear. I'm very honest. I don't bullshit. What you get is what you get on my show. Plus, there may be a lot of people who have heard about this already, the crash, okay, and they just want to listen to more of it. You're going to get a different kind of show because I live in Strongsville. This one is personal for me. And you may get a different perspective on stuff because I live here. I know the area, and the Shirillas live right down the street. My daughter, Madeline, graduated with Mackenzie. And my youngest daughter, Alexandra, knew Danielle, the other sister. They would do plays together. So, sit back. Try to relax. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Actors Room highlighting a documentary. It's called The Crash, and wow, whew, this is going to be interesting. Here we go. July 31st, 2022 at 5:30 a.m. A 2018 Toyota Camry reached 100 miles per hour down a vacant road in the middle of town and slams right into the corner of a brick business building. The road is an industrial parkway. All business buildings, and I believe there's actually one house in that whole area, just one, and it's way on the other side of the complex. I wanted to point that out because I take this road often. It's a cut through. On my way to my house, I will use that because it's just not busy. And it's a direct route to my house, which means it was a direct route for Mackenzie. And I want to go ahead and get rid of this rumor that and for some people it's not a rumor actually. It's a fact that Mackenzie did several dry runs of that road. I don't believe that to be true, and I'm going to tell you why. She was familiar with that cut through. She used it. So she knew of it already. She didn't need to do test runs, and if there's pinging or there's people that saw her in that area, it was because maybe she was just going home. And we're going to go ahead and talk more about that road later on in this episode. But we'll continue on with what happened on July 31st of 2022. 3 people were in the car. Davian Flanagan, age 19, Dominic Russo, age 20, and Mackenzie Shirilla, age 17. She was going to be 18 in a few days of that time. Like I said, it happened in the city of Strongsville, Ohio, and that's where I live. I heard middle school stories that my daughter would talk about, and she would talk about this girl. And mind you, this was about 9 years ago. When we first moved into Strongsville, it was about 9-10 years ago. And Mackenzie and Madeline were in the same grade. And I remember Madeline coming home and talking about this girl and how wild she was. And I'm not going to say what she saw in school because it's not appropriate. And it's something I just don't want to talk about. But she had a reputation for just being difficult, wild, a bully. Okay, she picked on a lot of other kids. She was just that girl. And they say that mean girl thing, that's what she was. And you're getting that firsthand. My daughter saw it. A lot of other people did too. Dominic Russo also lived close to me and close to Mackenzie. I'm not sure if a lot of people know that. If you looked at the text messages that are now available, you will see how Mackenzie always asked Dominic to drive her to school. We live maybe a mile away from the school. It's in our backyard. And I'm talking about the high school. If Mackenzie really wanted to, she could have very easily walked to school. She didn't need a ride. She just wanted a ride. Dominic's house was right on the same street as the high school. So I wanted to point that out because I don't think people know this little bit of information that you're going to get in other documentaries that you see or other shows that you've listened to about this incident. I remember hearing about the crash that actually happened on the next day, August 1st. And I believe it was a Saturday, if memory serves. I didn't look it up, but I remember my family and I sitting around at night, and it must have happened the night before, and it was a Saturday night. And our town has a social website on Facebook, a thread, a discussion group called Strongsville Moms Discuss It. It's very popular. There's actually people in other cities that join this Strongsville Moms Discuss It, and you could pretty much assume what that is. It's a forum for mostly women, some men talk on that, to just talk about what's going on in the area, all the gossip. And it's interesting that I talk to my wife about this because she's on it often. I go on there every now and then for entertainment, but she talked about how Mackenzie's mom, Natalie, was a moderator for that website, that forum. Maybe one of two and three other women were moderators with Natalie. And my wife would talk about Natalie in the past, before all this ever happened, and how she was. She was just sort of, how she seems. Those of you who have a strong opinion about Natalie, she is like that. She's just opinionated, but isn't everybody? But I guess she would go on and on and on in this Strongsville Moms Discuss It, talking about everything that's going on in the area. But the point I'm trying to make is that when this happened, and especially the next day, when it started leaking out, that site exploded. Just, opinions about what happened. And mind you, Mackenzie Shirilla had a reputation already, and it wasn't a good reputation. So right off the bat, there's a lot of people going, boy, if anybody was going to crash their car into a building, it was probably her. But we really didn't quite know the details. And I have to say that most people felt that she did it on purpose already. And this is the next day. And I'm not saying maybe half and half. There were half people who were like, oh, she did it on purpose. And there were the other half that went, how can you say that? Because we really didn't know what was going on. And I just assumed, because she was wild, hey, I hung out with wild kids. My dad didn't want me hanging out with my friends, and I get it now. Back then, I didn't understand it, but now I do as a parent. But knowing how wild she was, I assumed they were drunk or high. Who knows what happened? They were racing, and things got out of control, and an accident happened. That's what I assumed, and that's what other people did too. But I wanted to set all that up before I get into the documentary, because we will do that. Sorry. My show will talk about the doc, and I will give my input while I'm going over the doc and the notes that I have. So I want to let those of you who don't usually listen to my show, that's how it goes. And once again, this is the Actors Room, and I'm going to try to do the best I can to be impartial. You're going to get my opinion. And I tell people, listen, this is an entertainment show. Don't believe everything I say. Do your own research. Okay? That's what I tell my audience all the time. And it's important to do that. After listening to any show, you should do your own research and form your own opinion. You're getting mine. And you could take of it what you will. And I will mess up every now and then, and I usually don't erase it. I just sort of, if mistakes happen, right, that's my show. Hopefully, you learn something new, different perspective. So, here we go. I will lightly touch on the cut-through road of the crash site before I dive into the doc, and this is why. I don't hear this little bit of information that I'm about to say anywhere else, just because I don't know. Okay. Because I take that road all the time, right after the crash, which is weird because that corner of the building was damaged for a long time. They had to wait for the insurance to cover it. It's a business. And every time you go down there at that time, a year probably after the crash, it was still damaged. It was just there. And you're reminded about it every time you passed it. And there were tracks of where she went from the road, okay, and up on the curve, and there was a sign, and she went through that. Not a very big sign, right? Very easily going 100 miles per hour. She went right, no problem there. Went right through that. And after she did that, there was a turn made, a sharp right-hand turn, where she did that turn to go directly into the corner of the building. Because if she didn't make this turn that I saw, the tracks, and she went straight, she would have went eventually into the building, but definitely further away and just to the side of the building. So what I want to say is that little bit of evidence that I saw every day for about a year, or until the grass grew, was that traction of her turning. So the car would go into that corner. She knew that road, and she knew that she can reach about 100 miles per hour. There's a slight turn. The road itself isn't all straight. It goes straight, and then it turns a little to the right, and then it turns a little to the left. It's not like a straight shot. Like you can't go 100. Like when she turned right real slow and she entered that road, she probably went about 35, 40 for most of it. Because there's little turns here, little turns there, and then finally there's this last little turn where you go right a little bit. And that's when she really gunned it. And she could have. She could have reached 100, hitting that last little turn, going straight, and then when she hit that sign, she knew she had to jerk it a little bit to hit the corner directly. That was the kill shot. And it always just sort of creeped me out, knowing that she had, and there was evidence of it by her tire tracks. She was going so fast. Oh my God. We got to dive into this documentary. I'm going to take a moment. I do this on my show. I'm going to take a sip of water. I need it. For the vocal cords, because we're going to get at it. The documentary. Netflix usually does a very good job, I felt. And they left a lot of stuff out. You and I both know that. Those of you who know about this case and the doc and all that stuff and this what happened. I'm sure you've done a lot of research online, all that stuff. So you know Netflix didn't include everything. But we're going to talk about what they touched on and then some. The doc starts off showing Mackenzie graduation day. I was there that day because Madeline, my daughter, graduated too. It was hot that day. Fucking hot. I swore. It might happen again. Sorry for those of you who find that offensive. Sorry. But I remember how hot it was that day. And I'm talking about for us here in Strongsville, Ohio, near Cleveland, okay, we're mostly used to the cold. Our bodies adjust better to the cold. It was probably around 100 that day. So you sat in the stands watching this graduating class of around 300 kids? Big class. So it took about 2-3 hours and you're sitting there. It was, at noon on I think it was a Sunday, sweating. And yeah, I remember that day very well. And they're showing Strongsville grads and Mackenzie. They show Mackenzie. They show Davian. And Dominic was, of course, older. He graduated a couple years before that. Let's talk about Davian Flanagan. Local football star. Running back for our Strongsville football team. Folks, Strongsville football, huge here. Huge. And they're usually pretty good. And Davian was very good. I remember Ohio State coach at the time, Urban Meyer. For those of you who watch college football or know of football, Urban Meyer would come to the Strongsville games, scouting talent, scouting players like Davian Flanagan. You've seen the pictures of him, the footage. He was a good kid. Great smile. He got injured playing football, ending his chances of future with the sport. And because of this, he had time in his hands to find new friends. And he did. The wrong friends, but friends nonetheless. He simply started hanging around the wrong crowd. And hey, it's not his fault. He wanted to have a good time. That's what high school's all about, right? Hey, I graduated in 94, and I gotta tell ya, I had fun. I'm not gonna lie. I had some wild friends, and I had a fucking blast. I did. I look back at my high school years because I just do. I have fond memories. Hanging out. We got in trouble a little bit. Nothing serious. Minor stuff. But, we had Dominic and Davian and Mackenzie. They were having a good time. They got into trouble. They were a bit wild, but they were living life. But the big haunting question about this situation, was it an accident or was it murder? And we'll try to answer that question during the course of my show. The doc shows the friends hanging out. Good times. Rosie, Kenzie, Davian, Dom, and Bubba. Bubba. Sorry. Bubba. Anyway, let's talk about Dominic Russo, Kenzie's boyfriend. They started dating when she was a freshman. He was a junior. Bit of an age difference, and I think that's common. When I was a junior, I dated a freshman. I'll admit it. It happens that way usually. Okay. Guys are definitely a little more immature. I think most of you would agree. And they date younger girls. When I was 17 or 18, right? And my girlfriend at the time was probably 15, 16. And when you think about it, 1 or 2 years. And that's what we're dealing with here with Kenzie and Dominic. I think most people think it was a larger gap, more inappropriate. I don't see a problem with it. And even the text messages that I read, I couldn't read all of them. Did you read them all? And if you did, congratulations. You deserve a freaking medal. Those are hard to get through. Not only are there a plenty of text messages to go through, right? It's hard. It's a hard listen, folks. Am I right? It's a hard listen. But I remember Dominic mentioning to Mackenzie their age difference and how he sort of recognized that and how young she was, on how he was hesitant to do things with her because of her age. But back to Dominic Russo. I found him to be very complex, goal-oriented, bipolar, talented, confused, frazzled a lot, unsure of himself. Aren't we all at that age, though? A bit of a druggie. And sorry, ladies and gentlemen, he was. And so was Kenzie. We see one of their friends in the doc, Rosie. She's defending her friends. Okay? Whatever you feel about Rosie, I understand it. I do. She doesn't come off very well. But you have to understand. Those were her friends. And she lost her friends. And it's difficult. And as unlikable as Kenzie is, she was still her friend. I had friends in high school that people didn't like, but I did because they were fun. And they made me feel alive. And I think that's what Kenzie did for some people in her life because of the way she was. And I'm going to tell it the way it is. That's my show. Because a lot of other shows will just dog on Kenzie. She's a human being. She was a neighbor. And what she did was unfucking believable and horrific, no doubt about it. We'll get into that. But for the time being, we're talking about Rosie, and she was simply defending her friends. The one thing I don't like about Rosie was the fact that she didn't help out the police when they asked for her help. That was wrong. She's hiding something. That I don't like. Defend your friends all you want. I get that. I do. But not helping out the police because you're that loyal? I don't know. Obviously, she's hiding something. Am I right? Oh, I'm right. I want to point out before we move any further that if you find the format of my show sort of jagged, it's because I'm following the format of the doc. So if it seems a little off and I'm jumping around, I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm trying to do the best I can following the sequence of the doc and then adding other information, personal information or opinions along the way. Mackenzie Shirilla was the only survivor of the crash. She was the only one wearing a seatbelt, which is questionable because she usually didn't wear a seatbelt. In videos that you see of her, pictures, whatnot, where she's puffing on her blunts, no seatbelt. Even there's video of her driving and smoking, no seatbelt. So I find it very interesting. Then on that fateful morning, she decided to wear a seatbelt. Side note, Dominic was having dreams right before the crash of Mackenzie being sent away in a helicopter. Can you believe that? Dreams. Dreams are, that's an untapped resource that we just don't understand. The power of our brains, right? I don't think we realize how powerful our brains are and what they can foresee and stuff. This is real stuff. And that's no joke. He was having dreams about helicopters. And wouldn't you know it, weeks later, Mackenzie Shirilla for real was being helicoptered out to the hospital after the crash. There were drugs found in the vehicle after the crash, weed and shrooms. I mean, hey, I'm going to tell you, in the Midwest here, okay, the kids, teenagers, they do weed and shrooms. We did that in the 90s too. I didn't do shrooms. I can't. There's something about acid. I've seen people on it. Scares the shit out of me. I'd smoke. Not going to lie, but that was back then. But that's what, I mean, I'm sure most kids anywhere in the world experiment with marijuana, mushrooms, acid, okay? These are things that we do. The thing that concerns me is the amount of drugs. Seemed to be a little too much of the shroomage going on in that car, which tells me they were probably selling, and I'm going to confirm that now. Dominic Russo sold drugs. And I'm not quite sure exactly what he sold. I know it was marijuana and mushrooms, for sure. I don't know if it was anything else. He had a pretty decent clientele, mostly high school kids. He lived right next to the high school, folks. So I know he sold to high school kids, and he did have other clients in the area. If you read the texts, it's confirmed by Dominic himself saying he's going on a sale. That was his income for the most part. I know he dabbled in other things, crypto, and he was trading. He had music that he was interested in doing. He was a busy guy. He had a lot of interests, which was great, but he also sold drugs. And I think there are family members that don't want to see that, and I get it. I mean, hey, for me, it doesn't make him a bad person, but it's a part of what he was, who he was. We may not mention that again, but I sort of want to confirm that because, I live in the area, and I can confirm it. My daughter can, the people around here can. That's what he did. The Strongsville police are amazing. I want to point them out right now. You won't find cooler cops than Strongsville cops. I've lived in Parma. I've lived in Parma Heights. I've lived in North Royalton, which is the city next to it, next to Strongsville. Okay? North Royalton cops are dicks. Sorry, you are. Parma Heights cops, assholes. I lived in Parma Heights for about 10 years. I probably got 10 tickets. I would get one a year. I've been in Strongsville for 10 years. Not one time have I got pulled over. Not once. I see people speeding past a cop here in Strongsville, and they're just like, they're so nice. They really are. I wanted to point that out because they're amazing. And I note that because the next scene in the doc, you have the police telling Kenzie's parents what happened. Oh, boy. First time we get to see Natalie and Steven. Boo. I know. Hey. I just want to say, before we get into them, and we will, they have aged about 20 years since 2022. How they look in that scene where the cops are coming to tell them what happened, take a look at how they are and how they look now. Because they're my age. They look mid-40s, late 40s. They look like they're pushing 60 now. They've been going through it, ladies and gentlemen. However you feel about them, and you think that they should be in jail too, right? They're going through their own sentencing right now. Also in that clip, you kind of get to see Mackenzie's younger sister, Danielle. My daughter, Alex, would do plays with her. They would talk about anime. Not much. I'm not saying my daughter and Danielle were close. They're not. They just ran in similar circles. And you get to see a little bit of Danielle. You don't really hear about her much, which is great. And I'm going to tell you something. She's a sweetheart. You can just tell. What happened there? Is there truth to bad seeds? Because you have Mackenzie, right? Wild. Getting into trouble. Just bad. Simply put. And then you have a younger sister, coming from the same parents, living in the same house. And she's completely different. Nothing like Mackenzie. Danielle has changed her name. And I remember looking at the little program when we go to see the plays, because my daughter was involved with that too. And I noticed her on stage and went, oh my God, that's Mackenzie's sister. And I'm looking in the program and I don't see Shirilla in the program. I'm like, I know that's her. And I'm looking at the program going, okay. And I look at the character she was playing and I look at the name and I'm like, oh, she changed her name. She's smart. And it seems to me that's the way to go. She's off at college now with a different name. And hopefully, she's sort of separated from that now. And I'm praying that she can have her own life away from this bullshit. We'll touch on Natalie and Steve just for a brief moment, because that's when we see them, right? Cops are telling what's going on. They're shocked. They're upset. Oh my God, yeah. And pretty natural reactions, right? Very. They're defending their daughter, right? You have that parent fog, cloud, where your daughter does no wrong. Of course she's innocent. They would never believe she could do that on purpose. And because they would be directly responsible as well. Being a failure, that much of a failure as parents. They couldn't handle her. Okay. And not only that, they let Mackenzie sort of run their house. How can that happen? Where did you lose grip, Dad? Where did you lose grip, Mom? You have to take control of that house. They had no control over Mackenzie at all. And we'll get to other stories that I've heard that I haven't seen or heard of in other shows. Let's get back to the doc. Dominic's father is told about the crash and he is plainly numb. There has been a lot of death around this man. He has lost a lot of close family members recently. In finding out about Dominic, I'm sure, and he even explained it in the doc, that he was, I can understand it. You're just like, what? And you could see that in him during the doc. He couldn't believe it. And I think most of Dominic's family was like that. The mother's reaction, let's get to that. Dominic's mother, Christine, had nothing to do with this doc, and she explained that locally. They asked her to be in the documentary, of course. Of course. Okay? And she had nothing to do with it. She said, no thank you, appreciate it, but you can all fuck yourselves. She's like, I wanted nothing to do with Netflix, with giving interviews, and all that stuff. She has nothing to do with it. She said, thank you for the opportunity, but I'm going to hard pass on that. You can, of course, watch the mother's reaction to getting the news about Dominic online. It's on YouTube. I've watched it. Holy shit. She completely loses it. That's probably the way I would react, by the way, if I found out that my daughter had died that day. Watch the clip if you can. She was completely unhinged. And it's hard to watch because I would have no idea. None. But I think I would react in that way where you're just frazzled. You're just, wow. And for those of you who can't stomach things like that, don't watch it. I wouldn't recommend it. Why did that car crash? First thing I thought of, were they high? They must have been stoned out of their ass, high, tripping, right? Toxicology reports on Mackenzie showed only THC in her system. And you're thinking this, well, she was high. That's why it happened. This is a girl that smoked pot, weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. They would also dab. I didn't even know what that was. I had to look that up. It's a way to smoke marijuana, different way to smoke it. They did that pretty much every day. All day. She even had stomach issues because of it. So she was used to weed. So I am ruling that out, and they don't even bring that up. Like Natalie and Steve, her family, they don't even use that as an excuse about why this happened. The documentary shows us Davion's little sister, and her name is Divine. And she is divine, isn't she? Wise beyond her years. You feel it. You feel her. You feel her hurt and pain and suffering and loss. And she gets it. She misses her brother. Like she says, that was her hero. And Davion was a good kid. Just mixed up with the wrong crowd. And she says she never liked Mackenzie. And she was adamant about that with Davion. She made it pretty clear to Davion, I don't like her. The first time she met her, Divine said, I don't like her. You get that first impression with people. First impressions go a long way with me. And vice versa, when I'm meeting new people for the first time, I always want to put my best foot forward. Don't you? You want to look appropriate. You want to act appropriate. Be friendly. Approachable. Mackenzie wasn't like that. When she met new people for the first time, she wasn't dressed accordingly. She didn't act politely. She was rude, standoffish. And we'll get to her right now. Mackenzie, about how I feel about her. Here we go. She was fun. Confused. Low self-esteem, for sure. Self-doubter. Entitled. Bully. Possessive. Spoiled. Pretty. And an attention whore. Does that sum up for her? I think it does. But there might be some people, one of those definitions about her that you didn't agree with, that she had low self-esteem. The way she acted, you're like, why would you think that? She thinks very highly of herself. Well, she's a narcissist for sure. There's no doubt about that. But you have to understand something. And I think most of you probably know this. Narcissists have low self-esteem. That's why they're narcissists. You always got to prove something. Because they're low on themselves. She was a bully because she didn't want to be bullied. I had bullies in school. I got bullied a lot. When I was a freshman, I was like 5'2", 80 pounds wet. They were throwing me around and throwing me in garbage cans. It's rough here in the Midwest, folks. Shit happens. You get picked on relentlessly. But, these things happen. And she bullied people around. She was a terror. She was that kid in class. She was like, oh my God. Madeline, my daughter, would run into her from time to time, and it was never a positive experience. So, there you go. Christine Russo, not Dominic's mother, but Dominic's sister, also named Christine, which I found interesting. Weird. But Christine Russo, the sister, said that Natalie Shirilla made it known that Kenzie was unconscious for days after the crash, when they were in communication with one another, between families. How's Kenzie doing? Because at this point, when it just happened, Dominic's family, Davion's family, believed it was an accident. How's Kenzie? Is she going to be okay? They were concerned about her. And Natalie, the mother, told Russo's family she's unconscious and has been for a few days. Pray for her. Folks, she wasn't unconscious. And Christine explains that later. Why would Natalie say that? Because they're concocting a story, maybe? The prosecutor is shown next, and they want justice. It's explained that Mackenzie's head was under the dashboard at the crash site. Dominic was already passed, and Davion was hanging on, still alive, barely though. I think he passed on the way to the hospital. The law investigated all they could about what happened. I want to note the secret language that Natalie and Mackenzie use with one another. That's creepy. It's explained by the father, Steve Shirilla. It's a Carney language, a gypsy language that Natalie and her family have done in the past to sort of talk without revealing what they're really talking about. Secret language. They would use this against Steve because Steve didn't speak it. You've got Natalie and Mackenzie and maybe Danielle, I don't know, speaking this other language so Dad doesn't know what they're talking about. It's weird. But what are you hiding? Why are you using this secret language at the hospital after the crash? It's fishy. It should be. They should understand that. If people are questioning this secret language stuff at the hospital, I mean, I think that's common sense. Mackenzie said something very interesting at the hospital. She said, can we tell? It was decoded. The language. This is the point I'm trying to make. Someone decoded this secret language and what Mackenzie said to her mom. She said, can we just tell them that I had a seizure? Think about that. And she also said to the cops, can you just take away my license for a year? Well, that doesn't seem unusual. Plus, they were getting attention because of this from modeling agencies right in the hospital, days after the crash. And this was a huge topic of discussion on Strongsville Moms Discuss It. Oh, you have no idea. When that was realized, because it just leaked out, that they were talking, Natalie, the mother, was talking to modeling agencies days after the crash. What the fuck? What is wrong with you? And Natalie tried to deny it later on, but it's plain. What is wrong with these people? That should be the last thing on your freaking mind. Natalie also lies that Mackenzie wasn't suicidal in the past. There was an incident where cops were called to the Shirilla house because Mackenzie was threatening suicide. It was documented. Natalie, she's obviously a liar, and she's trying her very best to get her daughter out of this in any way possible. We see Rosie again, and she has 200,000 followers on TikTok. That's incredible. And I asked my daughter about this because Rosie was also in the same class as my daughter and Mackenzie. And I was like, Rosie has 200,000 followers, Madeline. She goes, I know. I'm like, that's impressive. How did that happen? And she said that when COVID hit, Rosie really got in at the ground level with this exercise stuff and being inside, and like she just did it right. And I guess her exercise videos are very popular. I think that she's a very pretty girl. I do. But she just comes off so badly in this. I mean, she does. I think most would agree with that. Dominic eventually got his own place. It was the house right next to his mother's house. Mrs. Russo, Christine, owned both houses. So moving right next door for Dominic was an easy thing to do. And he was just paying rent there. Just wanted to put that out there. I don't think that's known. Dominic was extremely close to his mother. She was his hero. That's what I get. That's the feeling I get. He cared very deeply for his mother and vice versa. Christine loved Dominic with all her being. Mackenzie will end up moving in to that house next door with Dominic after she graduated in 2022. And her parents were okay with this. They both know Dominic's selling. They know that. Okay. And Dominic, overall, in my opinion, was a pretty good dude. Okay, I didn't know him personally. I'm just forming opinions about people. Okay, and the information I got from my daughter, things like that. He was a good dude. Okay? He was just dating. His choice of a partner at that time was just bad. It happens. You know, we picked the wrong mates for an extended period of time. He wanted to break up with her so many times. He just couldn't let go of her. She was hard to let go of. She had her hooks into Dom. She wanted to spend the rest of her life with Dominic. She wasn't going to let him go. And she said so. I want to note that Stephen Shirilla, Mackenzie's father, is on leave from work. He was pretty much released from his job. I hate seeing that. As much as you may not like any part of her family, these are still people that have to pay bills. You know, and the thought of losing a job, to me, is just frightening. But when you act the way Steve has acted, I get it. He's a teacher, an art teacher at a local Catholic school in Parma. And when this crash happened and everything leading up to this documentary, okay, there's a lot of attention in that school because of what happened. And I think a lot of the parents didn't like the fact that their kids had to deal with this story and the circumstances around it. And after this doc came out, and the shirt that he wore and the things that he said, condoning marijuana use in his home, was the last straw. And it gave the school a reason to let him go. Kenzie says she doesn't remember the crash. It's convenient. I like it, though. It's a good angle. I lost time. I hear that when you're in an accident like that, that's common. You're jarred. You actually forget moments before and after the incident. The next thing that was interesting was they showed Davion's friends, and they note that they have an app called Life 360 that keeps tabs on all their buddies. So they tracked where Davion was that night. We finally get to meet Davion's father, foster father, real father, in my opinion. That's a dad, by the way. His name is Scott Flanagan. This guy gets it. He's incredibly wise about life and how to be a parent. Take note, Natalie and Steve. Take note. He says at one point in the doc, this is Scott Flanagan, quote, "As a parent, it's important to push back the narrative on drugs. And you have to," end of quote. You have to, as a parent, make that decision about not condoning it. They're going to do it, they're going to do it. You and I both know that. Whether you're a kid right now or not. You know how kids are. You could talk to them until you're blue in the face, but you know what? You're going to try. You're hopefully going to reach them, right? You're hoping and praying, yeah. But you can never condone that. It's not good for a young teenager or any teenager to be smoking an excessive amount of weed. It stunts growth in the brain. It does. Okay? If they're going to do it, but you can't have parents being like, "Oh yeah, come on in everyone. We're going to smoke together." And they were okay with Mackenzie pretty much smoking every day. I don't like it. Just don't. Scott Flanagan also says that he talked to his son Davion about his new friendships. As a dad, he was concerned that Davion was going down the wrong path. And he was. He was right about that. Scott said to him, quote, "Show me your friends, I'll show you your future." End of quote. And he is absolutely right about that. Dominic's family is hard for me to figure out. To be honest, I'm an outsider. I don't know them. But they seem to be a broken family. That's common. And it looks like Dominic's mom would drink. She's an adult. She can drink as much as she wants. But in the text messages I read, there was an incident where Dom was really upset that his mom was drunk at like 5 in the evening and she was fucking dinner up. And hey, right? Maybe she had a bad day. Okay. But if someone's drunk already by 5, they're probably a consistent drinker. I'm guessing. Hey, like I said, this is my show. I'm going to make opinions. It doesn't mean they're right. I'm probably wrong, but I'm just throwing that out there. And I'm trying to figure his family. He had a lot of brothers, older brothers. He was the youngest. He was sort of the baby of the family. He seemed to be close with his other sister, Christine. Angelo was, I think, his closest brother. But, Dominic had some issues, for sure. Always concerned about his health, which isn't a bad thing. But at that age, concerned about your health already? We got a long way to go, man. I'm 50. I have a right to worry about my health, and I do. But a 20-year-old worrying about their health already? Man. I think he had too much fun, honestly, but maybe he was abusing his body to the point where he would worry about that. I don't know. But sometimes I go a little too far on my show that way, but that's my show. That's why I'm saying those of you who are listening, thank you. You're getting a different kind of show with me. I kind of swerve over here. I'll swerve over there. I may go off topic. I haven't done that yet. But we're going to go ahead. I'm going to check my notes, take a moment, and get back to the doc. Let's talk about this party or get-together right before the crash. What happened there? Witnesses say, nothing, Jeff. Nothing happened. I say, they're most likely hiding something. Rosie is definitely hiding something. She lies. The fact that she didn't talk to police, like I mentioned earlier, is a bad look and a huge red flag. She honestly should have been made to talk to the cops. But Rosie claims it was a sleepover. Graduates recently are having a sleepover? Isn't that for 10-year-olds? She mentions coloring books? Okay. Bubba says Don't you just love Bubba? Bubba says they smacked the bong. Oh, they smacked it. If you've ever done a bong, whoa. That'll send you to the moon. Bubba also gives insight on Kenzie's smoking and how much she was smoking. She was smoking so much, she was coughing up black phlegm. And also blood. But, incredible, think about that. But had THC in her system at the crash. So she was smoking through black mucus, black phlegm, and all this other crap, and blood. Shit. Dominic wanted to break up with Mackenzie for a long time. She wouldn't let it. She owned him, like I said before, and that's obviously dangerous. I believe this crash was planned by Mackenzie. The fact they left at 5 a.m. is unusual. But that age, you do unusual things. It's my belief that Mackenzie wanted to leave earlier than that during the night. She knew the cut-through. She used it often. And she knew it would be perfect for her plan. Dominic texted his father that he loved him at a strange hour that morning/evening. I think it was around 3 a.m. And a lot of people believe that to be unusual. And I do too. But finding out from the sister Christine Russo, that was a common thing that the dad would do with his kids. And the other way around. Texting each other that they loved one another at odd times. Davion Flanagan was not supposed to be in that car. Kenzie didn't want him to come. He was coming, nonetheless. Dominic made sure of it. And Kenzie relented. So think about that. It may have taken her just a few minutes to consider that notion. And what she had planned that morning, what she was going to do, taking out Dom, and now Davion. That is some deep, dark shit. The video of that car speeding to its demise is incredible. The way she carefully turned right onto Progress Drive. She was fully aware. Even used her turn signal. She wasn't impaired to steer the way she did. Car had no defects. It was checked out. The fuzzy slipper stuck to the pedal. That was the result of the crash and the fact she didn't brake. She accelerated 100%. That's what I feel. I want to mention next of an example of how shitty this situation was surrounding Mackenzie Shirilla at the Shirilla household. Every now and then, the Shirillas would allow Mackenzie to have a party at the house. In my fucking development. Where there would be Mackenzie's friends and other minors drinking and smoking. There was an incident, I think around 2019, 2020, right around there. I might be off on the year. But anyways, party at the Shirillas with minors. A girl got so drunk at the party that she fell down the stairs and permanently injured herself. brain damage. This girl wanted to be a pilot, my daughter said. And because of this incident at the Shirilla house, she can't be a pilot anymore. We won't reveal the name, of course. But that actually happened in the Shirilla house, giving a little insight about what happened around that home and how dangerous things can be. The black box, 5 seconds of data. That's a lot, actually, the 5 seconds when you're speeding at 100 miles per hour. 100% acceleration. Psychopath. Want to mention friend of Dom's being interviewed at the police station. The kid that had the red puffy jacket. Well, he was like a... what a character, right? He mentions that Mackenzie dabbled in voodoo. Doing witchy things so she can keep hold of Dominic. She was that obsessed. That's like Fatal Attraction shit. Am I right? It was that scary with her and Dom. Did you read the text? That was a toxic relationship. There was actually one point in the text messages, and I think it was around 2021, where they went about a week where they didn't fight. If you got that far in the text or you know what I'm talking about, it was sort of refreshing. A little boring because they were always fighting. She was hard to please. For sure. I don't know how he put up with that for that long. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, the guy deserved a freaking medal. And at one point in the text, he said something like, he never wanted to like bang his head up against the wall more than at that time. And just bang his head up against the wall. I also want to note that when Dominic's mother, Christine, was told about Dominic's death, the first thing she said was, what did she do? That's powerful. The first thought is, what did she do? Dominic's brother, Angelo Russo, talks about Mackenzie and Dominic's fights and how often they were. How Kenzie would stalk Dominic. 2 weeks before the crash, and this is very important, she was driving dangerously on the highway. Dominic tugged at the wheel to correct the situation. She said during this, I'm going to crash this car. That's enough for me. That's intent. That's proof of her past being dangerous and saying those things. Honestly, I could say right now, my hand on the Bible, I've never said in a car, I'm going to crash it. Not once. Mackenzie will ultimately try to blame this on Dom, this incident on the highway, that he was trying to kill her. And I find this interesting because was she already, a couple weeks before the crash, planning it? Trying to put that on Dominic at that time, setting this up, having documentation to back her story. She wore a seatbelt. Did she want to survive? And for a while I'm thinking that it was a suicide mission. She was going to just take them all out, be done with it. She was that unhappy. No one else is going to have Dom, right? And boom. But now I don't think so. Her putting on that seatbelt, she wanted to survive. My God. Something also happened during this time. It looks like Dom, and I'm just making an observation and opinion, but it seems to me that Dom might have been a little rough with Mackenzie during this time period. Something happened because she says, I'm going to make a police report on you. And then they start threatening each other back and forth. And this is when it gets interesting. Because she threatens police report, right? And he comes back with this shocker. He says, I'll tell your mom about what you're doing. And you know what I'm talking about. The prostitution thing. And I go, and I've heard this rumor out there, previous, but holy shit. She was selling herself a little bit, mostly with pictures to old perverts. But there's an occasion where, some guy paid her to ejaculate with her feet. Dom says so in the text, brings it up. And they go back and forth on this. And he, of course, plainly, and should be disturbed by this. He even mentions that the mother of my children will not have done that. And he's holding this against her. Why is Mackenzie going to make a police report on Dom? For his drug selling? What's he selling? Or did he hurt Mackenzie in some way? Domestic abuse. I don't know, folks. I'm speculating. Why police report? And then you have Dominic revealing Mackenzie doing these things. She was... Boy, Dad. And I'm talking directly to Steve. He won't listen to this. He might. But Steve, buddy, dad to dad. That's what your daughter was doing, man. I couldn't imagine it. That's your daughter, bro. That, for me, sorry, folks. Getting a little... I'm pretty close to this situation. So... and the thought of my daughter doing something like that, that would send me to levels I can't explain. But let's put it this way. Mackenzie Shirilla was hanging around prostitutes at one point. Dominic was not happy about this and shouldn't have been. I think that bit of information was a big reason why things happened the way they did. How things would be revealed. Secrets out. Oh, this is a lot. It is. And her world was crumbling around her. The thought that Dom was going to leave her, I mean, that was her life. She lived with him. If they broke up, like, where's she going to go? Back to mommy and daddy? I don't know. Next in the dock is the arrest of Kenzie. 5 cop cars. It was a statement. Then we get a one-on-one. A one-on-one interview with Mackenzie. Oh boy. Her hair. My daughter Madeline's, because we watched the doc together, my family and I, we watched it together. And I looked at Madeline when Mackenzie's coming on the screen and Madeline's just like, because you got to understand, when this first happened, Madeline didn't really want to talk about it. We would bring it up, and she just... anything concerning Mackenzie, she just... it didn't interest her. She told me a story where she was walking home from school with her 2 friends that happened to be close with Mackenzie. And the 3 of them, my daughter and her 2 friends, passed the Shirilla house on the way to my house. And Madeline said that her 2 friends wanted to say hi to Mackenzie. Like, oh, there's Kenzie's house. Let's go say hi. And my daughter Madeline was like, fuck that. You go ahead. I'll stay right here on the sidewalk. And her accent during the interview, like how she is in prison, right? She's a chameleon, folks. And my daughter said that's how she talked in high school for the most part, that act. And she also said, my daughter, that Carney language, that language she talked with her mom, is something that she tried to teach her friends in high school or middle school, I think, my daughter said. It looks like Mackenzie has adjusted well in prison. And she's not a good, would you say, prisoner? I couldn't think of, she's not a good prisoner. She has disciplinary problems. Spit that one out, folks. A long list of things she's done wrong. She says in the interview that Dom and her eventually would be married. Dom would say that the mother of his children wouldn't prostitute, so that wasn't going to happen. She's almost believable in the interview. She has that conniving look, though. Doesn't she? She's got that face. Narcissist with low self-esteem is exactly who she is. The prison phone calls between her mom and herself are so cringy and go to show you who they really are. There's a bench trial. She chose a bench trial over a jury trial. I note that her lawyer was horrible. I love how they interviewed one of her other friends, and she says that Mackenzie cared about her health. She really did. She wouldn't even eat a McChicken. I go, yeah, when can you fit in all that McChicken when you're puffing on weed all day? So healthy. Mackenzie and her parents are blaming the crash on a medical emergency. POTS. Did research on this, and most, if not all, people that have POTS say that wouldn't they shouldn't even consider that would be a possibility, that POTS had anything to do with the crash. And even so, say Mackenzie has POTS. How the hell did she have a license then? And in court, they mentioned that. The prosecution said, hey, Natalie, you knew she had POTS. And there's no proof of it, by the way. And you still allowed her to drive? And she's like, yeah. What? So what? There was a possibility of your daughter passing out from this illness, and you still allow her to drive? So even if that is the case, and POTS is the reason why this happened, you should be in prison, Natalie. Shouldn't ya? Mackenzie says it's not in her character to do this on purpose, the crash. And I say, yeah, it is. They have in the doc Dominic's recording of Mackenzie threatening him to get into the house. That was chilling. And it goes to show you who she really is. And now she can't hide it anymore. They play that in court. And you see the looks on the faces of Davion's family and Dominic's family. They're like, oh my God. I mean, most of them didn't like Mackenzie, whatever. But they never saw her in that way. And hearing that was frightening. I note in caps, poor Davion. Cargo in the back seat. What a tragedy. And I'm going to say this, Mackenzie belongs in prison for the rest of her life. Mackenzie's parents at trial. Man, were they unlikable. Dom's sister said that both of them, Steve and Natalie, were inappropriate during the trial. Mostly the dad saying inappropriate things just shouting them out, I guess. That's a bit of information that most people don't know. And of course, we have to mention Mackenzie's behavior after the crash. Dressing as a corpse for Halloween. No remorse. Bad taste. No value. And Rosie, you need to shut up. I get it. You're defending. Kids do this. They dress up. Think about the circumstance. That's common freaking sense. What you did that night was wrong. Admit it. Admit it. Divine Flanagan on Mackenzie's attempt to apologize in court. Quote, the worst apology I've ever seen, end quote. And how fake it was. And it was. Steve Shirilla's body language at trial was disgusting. Natalie, the mom, addressing the court with her statement, tasteless and rude. And I like how the judge pointed that out. Good for you. Natalie plainly only cares about her daughter. Simple. The dad, Steve, actually shouted after the sentencing as Mackenzie was leaving the court, "We know you're innocent." That in itself. God, Steve. Really? It just goes to show you who these people really are and how disrespectful they are and just delusional. Mackenzie Shirilla gets 15 to life. She was finally held accountable, and it took the law to do so. The doc ends with the last of her one-on-one interview. She cries, stops, looks up, and you see a switch. Interviewer asks, "Do you have anything more to say?" She looks to her right, at her lawyer. She asks, "Did I do too much?" It's all an act. What a joke. She says, "I don't want to sound too crazy." Too late, Mackenzie. Too late. She's big on the no intent angle. Sure you are. Bye, Mackenzie. You'll never get the truth out of her. Not with those parents. And of course, Netflix has to add a twist to this doc. What's up the Shirilla sleeve? Dom may be responsible for the crash. Yeah, let's go ahead and blame Dominic. That's a good look. That'll win favor. You bitch. And I don't feel bad saying that. Shame on you. Shame. We will end this episode by giving respect once again to Davion's father, Scott. He's a rock star dad. He states how Mackenzie should take responsibility and how her parents should stop babying her and how it won't allow her to grow and change. Davion wanted to be a barber and wanted to go to barber school. And the Flanagan family has set up a scholarship in his name to a barber school. Beautiful. At least something good came out of this horrible incident. Rest in peace, Dominic Russo. Rest in peace, Davion Flanagan. Rest in peace. Thank you for listening to me. Jeff Tarowski is my name, and this is the Actors Room. I talk about documentaries every now and then. thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it for what you can, because this is a horrible occurrence, and it's just hard for me because I don't want to come off in a bad light talking about people, especially people that live right down the street. I pass their house every day. I pass the house that Dominic lived in every day. And it's weird. When I pass their house, because honestly, I've never met Steve or Natalie. Never met them. I've seen them at the plays and things like that. We've never crossed paths. But I'll see them outside in their yard and doing stuff. And it's weird because ever since this happened, they've let their yard go. They don't really take care of it. There's weeds, and it's just, you could tell. What's happened has done a number on I'm going to say this as I end the show, because there are a lot of people that blame the parents, and I get it. I do too. They're going through it. So maybe that gives all of you out there a bit of comfort knowing that, they're hurting. They are. Their daughter, they love their daughter no matter what she is, how she is. And they don't want to believe it. They can't, right? And they're battling that. Because I know deep down, they know she did it. They're not stupid. They're just parents trying to find the good in their little baby girl. At one point, Mackenzie was a little girl. Innocent. And she lost her way. She became damaged. And it's so sad. Those of us who are parents, and I have a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I look at them, and I always see their 6-year-old self. They'll always be these beautiful, innocent, just wonderful human beings, children. They'll always be kids to me, no matter how old they get. So, this was a rough one to do, and thanks for being here with me. You want to leave comments, subscribe to my show if you want. I mostly talk about actors. I love acting. I was an actor a long time ago. I studied acting in New York City a long time ago. I enjoy film, talking about art. And if that might interest you, I have 161 other shows that you may want to check out. Yeah, give him a chance. You might learn something about Robert Redford you might want to know about. I love Marlon Brando. I think he was the greatest actor ever. I talk about films. I did Tootsie. I'm an 80s kid. I talk about a lot of 80s stuff, 90s. I respect the older actors. Hollywood's a fucking mess right now. But thank you once again. Like the show, comment, whatever you want to do. Enjoy your family. Reach out. Hug your kids today. Hug them 10 times. They deserve it. You deserve it. Thank you. God bless you. Have a good one.